Come on, remember this song?
It's like it froze for a sec. Hey,
Okay, 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 all right. Anyways, how you doing?
good. How are you? I love that Como hat. You know, I love that hat.
I have to come fresh when I'm with you and relevant and cool, you know?
No, you're always that way, 24/7, my dear.
Thank you. Well, listen, thank you for being on the show. And I just thought that, there wouldn't be, there isn't there's no more relevant topic than what we're going through today, which is like maximizing building a brand, building a product during this pandemic. It's given us some time to recalibrate. But before we get into that, tell us a little about your story.
Bueno, I am una panameña,
Mhm.
Afro-Latina. I came to the United States when I was a tiny, tiny baby with my parents. My father came here to work with the Panamanian government in Washington, D.C. And then after his 4-year stint, my mom was like, me salgo de este frío. She's not staying in that cold weather. And, my parents decided to stay in the United States and we moved to Miami Beach to be exact. I grew up in Miami Beach, lived a great life there. And then after going to college, University of Florida, Miami was the base, Florida was the base. I decided to move to New York. I worked a couple of years in Miami, worked at Telemundo, worked at Cisneros Television Group. And then after my stint at Cisneros, I had an opportunity to come to work at MTV Networks. And, don't turn that down. And, my mentor, who was amazing, she just believed in me and, said she had an opportunity, came up, interviewed for it, got it. And that started, that kept my trajectory going, stayed in New York, worked at MTV Networks for 6 years, then went on to work at Blue Fly to help them rebrand. Then I moved to San Francisco, but I actually, in Miami, I forgot, I worked at Telemundo también. Oh my gosh, that was years ago.
Yeah.
Moved to San Francisco, took some time off with the kids, did a little bit here and there, came back to New York, and then I got back into it, started working on, work, in fact, with my mentor on a rebrand for Style Network. We worked on the rebrand for Telemundo Network. Then started doing more stuff with my partner. At the time, we worked on Sony Latin America. We, worked on so many things. Like, I've worked at Kate Spade Saturday to help them launch that brand. I've just been in the industry for quite some time. I've just been all over the place. I love branding and production and marketing. And, I've had the opportunity to work with some really great people at some really great brands. And absorb all of that information to kind of now, in my heart always wanted to work, back in the US Hispanic market. And, I felt like it was time. So like 6 years ago, I started venturing into it and I went really hard. And, as of February officially, we started our own agency. I
Hmm.
had one before, but it wasn't US Hispanic. It was focused on general market, but this one solely focuses on US Hispanic. And it was interesting because in February of last year, we had all of these things lined up and then COVID, right? And then now
Yeah.
what? But in a way, I really see it as a blessing in disguise because I think what this pandemic has done, and it's been tragic across all fronts. I think the one positive thing, and I always try to find positives and negatives, is people kind of really came to terms with themselves a lot.
Yeah.
Some by desire, some by necessity. And some people are kind of like looking in and being like, what do I really want to do? Right. And so for me, it was just a great opportunity because we were always focusing on everything else, never focused on our brand, that we were able to brand build over all of those months where nothing was happening. And it was hard. Let me tell you, it was not easy. Things shut down. First we had obviously COVID, then we had, Black Lives Matter, which was, in and of itself another tragedy. And an awakening, which, had to happen. Then, it was summer, which classically summer is summer. And, and so then, in the fall, things started to move a little bit again. And now things are starting to tilt, in a better direction. So we're
But
trying to keep that direction going.
why did the transition from general market to US Hispanic?
I'll be honest with you, because I felt like anytime I was either seeing or participating in something that was focused on the US Hispanic market, the attention to detail wasn't there. The dumbing down I felt was happening. You know, it felt like, you know, all of the beautiful design and all of the thought and everything that kind of goes into general market design and branding and marketing, I just didn't feel was happening too much in our market, you know? Um, I just felt like it was dumbed down. I felt like everything was, you know, primary color, like red, you know, yellow, maracas, like, you know, loud music. Um,
Translating and
yeah,
accents. So I'm with you on that. I like that. You saw opportunity, not just from the business, but from a fulfilling standpoint.
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
at this point of our career, you and I, we, you know, if we're going to dedicate time, it's got to be somewhat fulfilling, and the return on investment, personally and professionally, has to be there, right?
Yeah, so true. I think that, you know, it's such a cliche statement, but like if you love what you do, it doesn't work, right? So I work all the time and I love it. I just love what I do. It's exhausting sometimes, pero como que it's not painful.
Yeah, because if you love what you do, you'll put up with the late hours. Because if you're doing something for work that you don't love, you're going to have to quit when things don't work out. Or if not, you're the definition of insanity. You know?
Exactly. And people think that if you work for yourself, it's easier. And al contrario,
Yeah.
it's so much harder, you know?
Yeah. So no, I agree. So U.S. Hispanic, I like it. I also agree. Everybody is missing the opportunity on the fastest growing, most consumed when it comes to retail, growing numbers, and the youngest in every aspect, in tech, in consumer, in makeup, in sports, in politics or voting, you know. And so why do you think brands have not been able to capitalize this market? And I, you know, let's talk Turkey, you know, without naming brands. But why do you think? Because I can name a dozen, and you know that I've been personally a part of. They don't get it, and I have mine. But what's your opinion?
I just think that they never saw us as a viable market, right? And like they weren't focusing on us, right? They didn't think we had the spending power. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't think that we had, you know, kind of the, you know, the actual potential to, you know, connect with their brands. Look, Latinos are very loyal to their brands, right? Like once if your mother used, you know, X brand, you're going to use X brand, your kid's going to use X brand. So, you know, there's like there was like this missed and lost opportunity because, you know, they weren't coming in to kind of target us with product. But then the minute they started seeing the numbers, and I think that also you know, the digital landscape had a great kind of, you know, shift in all of this where they could see the numbers, where they could see it was more tangible that we over
Yeah,
index, you know, on platforms, and that they could see more of our spending power and our habits, where before, you know, they didn't care so much. And also I think that, you know, we've grown, you know, maybe now second, third generation, right? Where we are now able to be movers and shakers and the spending power, like the, you know, we're not too kind of myopic in where we shop because now we're not being targeted like solely on the channels that we grew up with, right? And those
yeah.
and the advertising dollars there were very specific on what brands were put there. They weren't taking chances on anything else, right? Because they knew that we were loyal audiences. But what they didn't know is that we're open to hearing other things and that the younger generation definitely was assimilating more and kind of seeing other things and wanting more, right?
Okay, so two things. I like what you're saying. One, before we'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they didn't see it because again we saw it because we are those people,
Mm-hmm.
but now with social media, now with smartphones, it's easily tracked. So you're right, now there's no excuse for them to realize we're a force, and this is not a cry, this is more of a business opportunity. Number two, you're right, now it's like it's actually not too late now that you're talking this way, because at first I thought they've been missing it. No, I think the wave is coming because there are still, our people are still assimilating second,
Right.
third, fourth generation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, again, I keep on using the example, you know, look at Latinos in sports now, you know, and look what the music industry has done internationally. J Balvin with
Right.
Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
you know, J Balvin with McDonald's,
No, está
Rome-
acabando. Yeah.
yeah, Romeo Santos with, partnering with Jay-Z on certain things. So
Bad
you're right. So,
Bunny with Corona, Bad Bunny with, the Crocs, like, they see,
yeah,
they can see now. And I think also, um, I think also, I don't want a brand name, but some of the bigger
yeah,
chain markets that saw the transition from the white, stay-at-home mom or the white mom, that kind of shifted to like the Latina mom, right? Like it was like it went from one to the other. And so they can see now, like it's actually happening. And they're very, very, they're brands that caught on faster, and they started targeting faster, and they did the groundwork for the other ones in a way.
yeah,
But certainly, now, I mean, you can go on Pew and you could just see all the research there that's been done.
yeah.
We are a force and we have spending power a
We
lot.
we we do, and there's opportunity for us, right? So for our viewers that are in the food or wine or the influence game, at least our viewers, you work with influencers and you work with rebranding brands. What
Mhm.
are certain things that, give them a one or two tips that they could be doing to grow their brand? Because when you grow a brand, you can grow anything else, sales, products, all that, but it starts with a brand,
Right.
right? So give me two tips for our viewers.
Well, I definitely think that you have to have a point of view, right? So that you target correctly. Like, what is your story? What are you telling, right? And then honestly, I think there's a lot to be said for paid media. Like sometimes, you've got to put the money behind it for people to find you, because you could have the best product in the world, and if nobody knows you exist, it doesn't make a difference, right? So investing a little bit in paid media so that you index when people are searching for products similar to yours, or keywords that would fall into what your brand is doing, is going to be very helpful. I mean, I know, one brand that we work with, it's been amazing to see the return that they get on their paid media play. And it's made a difference. It's fantastic. And I think, we're still doing it. We even did it through COVID, and we saw, return on their investment, which is, and it's quick, because it's kind of like you can see it in real time when you're doing like a paid search play. If it's doing well, you can throw more money in it. If it's not, you can balance, you can play with the money that you have to get the best return. And you can also learn a lot about your audience that way too. So I think, definitely, a paid media play is super important to get, for you to index,
Yeah, you gave us two tips. One, your point of view needs to be clear. Two, paid media should be integrated into your business plan, because if you're going to grow your brand, you have to treat yourself like a business, right?
Yeah.
So give us two things that not to do.
Well, I think one thing not to do is to water yourself down, right? I feel like, if you're going to take a stand, or if you're going to have a point of view, or if you're going to have like a look and feel, like own it, like don't compete with anybody else. The only person you're competing is really with yourself. Of course, you've got competition, but what do you want to do with your brand that you think is going to make you stand out, right? So do not water down don't be scared,
Yeah,
right? Like take a stand and like stand behind it. I think another thing not to do, potentially, would be not to invest in having somebody help you create that story. Like we all think that we have great ideas for writing, great ideas for design, great ideas for, yeah, al fin y al cabo, you get what you pay for. If you spend $300 on one good pair of shoes, those shoes are going to last you a lifetime, right? Lo barato sale caro, right? So like it's better to invest in somebody who can help put your story together visually, and your strategy and your copy in a way that actually makes you stand out and look good.
I wish I would have heard you say that before, because you're right. The Gucci's last longer than the ones on the rack on sale, just for the sake of they're a good deal versus a good shoe. And,
Hmm.
and so again, I would have more high-end shoes if I applied that, but they would have lasted me longer, right?
Yeah.
Number two, you're absolutely right, because I rather people save their money and invest with someone with a track record to open that up, because you're right. Lo barato te sale caro. I like that method. Okay, so if you could snap in 2 years where you want to be, because listen, there are a lot of Latino influencers, there are a lot of Latino chefs. They represent over 70% of the back labor kitchen. There's over 80% in the winemaking industry and the labor, but never on the front line. And then you look at music and you look at sports, it's going to continue to grow for a long time because we're young. So if you
Mhm.
could snap in 2 years where you would want you and your agency to be, what would that be?
Well, um, I think in 2 years' time, where I would be to, continue to tell really good stories and be able to amplify how I tell those stories, right? We have some ideas that we're cooking up of what we want to do because, I feel like we have a lot to say and there's not enough avenues for us to say them that aren't driven by us, right? So authenticity is super important, I think, when it comes to telling our stories, right? And I feel like sometimes if you are presenting a product or presenting whatever the case may be to somebody who doesn't get it, right? They're just never going to get it, right? But we get it, right? We get it. And it doesn't mean that just because you don't get it doesn't mean that there isn't an audience for it, right? So for me in 2 years, I want to be able to continue to tell our stories authentically, but on varying platforms, not only like on Instagram, but on other platforms that
Major
give us.
media, major media.
Yes.
As much as we know social media is powerful, TV is still in some ways king,
Well,
right?
I think, for me, it would be, to create, content, like content that is authentic to us and that maybe, like I said, maybe good content is good content. And you've got to be able and willing to take a chance on maybe something that is full on Spanish language, right? Which some brands are beginning to catch on to. I mean, look at, Casa de Papel, House of Cards, that did so well across the board with both Hispanic and non-Hispanic audiences, you know, storytelling, but taking chances and being able to do that without the fear of somebody, the no's and no's and no's are going to, they're not happening. They're not going to stop happening overnight. So
Yeah.
how do we work around those? Right.
So,
That's the
so,
idea.
so telling more stories, having more distribution to tell those stories, those
Correct.
platforms other than social media. I got it. And this COVID has kind of changed the face of like conferences,
Mhm.
right? So where do you think that's going to go?
So it's interesting. I think people really do miss conferences,
Oh
like
yeah.
the human connection. It's different. Like I'll be honest with you. I mean, I work across social and digital platforms and media, and it's just not the same. People, I think there is a big. I think people are getting exhausted of being, you know, at a conference in a room, like that's you're in front of the computer for for the most part all day. So it's hard to like have to sit there and be on the computer to listen. It's got to be super engaging for you to want to be there, right? So it's got to be super targeted and well done if it's going to happen. But I do think at some point we're going to have to open up and find a way to kind of responsibly have these conferences again.
Well, we have to.
They
We
we
have to.
have to.
And I'll say this, that COVID actually saved a lot of failing, declining conferences
Mhm.
because now they
Agreed.
have to think a little bit. They didn't have to spend the money and lose it. And I think that they should also be open to working with potential partnerships. So,
Sure.
like
And
stake
and
the game. You're gonna have to profit share. I think it's a smart way of doing it.
And I think there's also something to be said about exclusivity. Maybe it's not going to be the monolith 20,000 people at your conference.
Yeah.
Maybe it's going to be much smaller and more targeted. And that way it's more intimate. So you've got to make, life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. You've got to find a way where if we're going to do these smaller conferences, that they feel special and that they feel not so much exclusive because we don't want to exclude people, but that they feel very, very kind of purposeful and
No, you're,
smaller.
no, you're right. You're right because let's just say that model. You said it for a reason. Maybe the 30, 40,000. Let's just say for this example that the 30, 50,000, that might not be it. But how do we create that same value with just 3,000? I'm gonna.
Right. And
Will brands care about that? There's only 3,000.
is
How
it,
many brands?
I think, I think that, of course, eyes are king, whatnot, right? But if you have maybe 3,000 over 3 days, or, you kind of stretch it out over a couple more days, right? Make it more targeted, make sure you have an engaged audience, that there's a return on the investment in ways that you can, strategize around, what you're doing. I think that they'll be fine with it. I think that there can be extensions of it. There could be recorded parts of the session, but it's got to be a well thought out kind of strategy where you can incorporate more people, but also give some people that experience that they can come back and get
I like
together.
it. I was on a phone call earlier where there would be a hybrid activation and then a
Mhm,
digital platform,
mhm.
a media
Yeah,
platform. Okay.
yeah,
So, no, I
yeah.
like it. And then someone last week told me that, hey, I know you want to go comidazo with, 20, 30,000 at some point, but this is where they work in the industry. Like, hey, but we're already looking at a better targeted conference, more intimate, because you're building a culture. And this
Right.
from, an
And
agent.
how do you extend from that? Like the people that are there, how do you capitalize on them to tell your story from that intimate setting? So it kind of verticals out from what you're doing. It doesn't have to stay there. You can vertical out with everybody who went there. They can vertical out to their audiences as well. So there's ways to do it that.
Vertical out. I like that because if there's 1,000 people, it doesn't mean 1,000 people never are going to like me. But if there's 10,000 from those vertical outs that like and are endorsing my company, then it gets me exposure. So I think that hopefully the sponsors partners will catch on to that
And if there's
because
one person there that has 1 million followers and is creating content while they're there, right?
Mhm.
You have an audience, even though they're not there, right?
I like it.
There's
Don't
ways
give it.
to think about it.
Don't give out too many gems because that'll be for you and I's conference. All
We
right,
just gave away like 90. You're gonna have to cut them out.
I'm gonna edit those out. I'm gonna put
Yeah.
some stupid shit. I'm gonna say, hey, Sherm said this.
Yeah, and they can come to us and do it because nobody's gonna do it like you and me do it.
Exactly. All right, let's have a little bit of fun before we end this.
Okay.
All right. This segment is called hashtag que te molesta. What is your pet peeve in the industry?
Well, I didn't hear because I was laughing. ¿Cómo dijiste?
What's your pet peeve in the industry?
What's my pet peeve? Oh, that everybody's an expert.
Yeah, it's like that famous Morton Downey Jr. meme when he rolls his eyes.
Exactly, totally. I mean, listen, I respect everyone, and honestly, I want us to all succeed, right? Pero yo soy la primera que levanta la mano when I don't know something. I'm like, I don't know, but I'll find somebody who knows a lot about it, and that's how we're going to do this because I
I'm the first
can't
one to
speak to what
embarrass.
I don't know.
I'm the first one to embarrass my family. Well, I'll ask for directions in a store. And that's the first time I'm like, for what? Why are we going to spend time walking around lost? Let me just
Right,
ask someone who works here who should tell
right.
me, right? All
And
right.
Nina, there's lots of experts, lots of them. I'm happy. Just collaborate, use them, work with them.
Put a puzzle. The second question is, what is your pet peeve in society?
Preconceived notions. I feel like you can't look at somebody and know about them. You've got to get to know people. You can't judge people, just because you heard something or by the way they look or whatever. I always want to get to know somebody before, even if I've heard things, even if you hear things about people, you've got to like live that experience for yourself and get to know the person before you don't.
Yeah.
I'm not big on preconceived notions. I like to get to know people.
Yeah, because only time will tell, right? It's like,
And you
unfortunately,
usually know fast. You get a feeling, right? Like when you
yeah.
talk, yeah.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And you talk in social media. Listen, Instagram stories is really key, right? Because it kind of tells you a little bit about their beliefs and a little bit of who they are, as much as
Mhm,
it can be, made up.
mhm, mhm.
Okay, did you vote in this past election?
I did.
That's a rhetorical question. I just want to show people that we're Latinos, we are passionate, we are intelligent, we run businesses, but we also contribute to society
Oh,
in
yes.
fact of the voting power, right? And right now, even voting is more important locally because it impacts local business, which is impacting this economy, which is impacting our livelihoods. So I'm glad that you voted. And I know you voted right, but for the sake of the show, I had to ask you that question.
Mhm.
Um, three people, dead or alive, who would you like to have dinner with?
Obama. I'd like
There
to
you
have
go.
him. That's one. Dead or alive, let me think. Um, Probably, hmm, it's funny because like right now I have like who I would want to have dinner with right this
Yeah.
second, but
Mhm.
I don't want to waste those two on, you know what I mean? Because if it's dead or alive, so I think definitely Obama, probably Stevie Wonder.
Ooh, nice. Well, you know what? Now you're taking it to another level because if you have three thought leaders, it might be a boring dinner.
Yeah, I got to throw one crazy person in there.
Yeah, yeah. Stevie, Obama. Who else?
And then I think maybe hmm, one more. Gosh, this is tough, and I want a girl because I've got two boys.
Yeah.
Um, mhm. um, Female. I should know this off the top of my head, but I can't think right now. Let me think. Who do I love? There's so many people that I love, and I can't. Eleanor Roosevelt would be cool.
Ooh, I like that. I just seen the one CNN special where they had the First Ladies series,
Mhm.
and I like that. That's cool. Why would you pick her?
Because I think she really she was a woman who like really, was like, you got to do what you got to do, and you've got to put the work behind it, and hard work pays off, and the biggest your biggest enemy is yourself, kind of thing, right? So I kind of like that thought process. It could be very interesting. She would, kind of mix up the table, and Stevie Wonder's hilarious, and Obama is Obama, so maybe
That
those three.
that says a lot about you though, because Obama is cool, one of the coolest. And even though you're in the industry, you're the relevant, you're the cool one, especially in this
Stop it.
reggaeton popular world. You're like, you know what? Just give me, "As" by Stevie Wonder.
Yes, that's my
Uh,
favorite one.
that's my favorite one too. When it came out in that movie, and I was like, man, it was just that perfect love scene. I think it was, Love and Basketball or something. But that's my favorite song, by Stevie. It's just so welcoming. I don't know. I just remember as a kid, my mom playing it, and
It's such a good song, and he
yeah,
has so many good songs. Like, what is in that head of his that
he's timeless. He's timeless like Michael.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
La-
Yeah.
Sherm, last question. The world is ending. ¿Cuál sería el último plato, that the last dish you would want to eat on this earth?
Oh my gosh, such a hard question. It is, but I'm thinking it would maybe be, mm, wow, and it's got to be my mom's cooking, right? So I'm going through my mom's repertoire. So, and there's so many good things that she makes, but I think it might be arroz, porotos, which are red beans in Panama, right? Arroz, porotos, and her ropa vieja. That would probably be. It's like just comfort, throw down,
Mm-hmm.
fill me up, food.
Tomatoey based. I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I love it. I want to thank you for being on the show. I thought it was important. I have all these cool guests, and I'm like, one of the coolest is the one I talk to a lot, which is you. And it's getting some traction, and we're providing these stories, but also helpful tips. And you're one that I admire. So I want to thank you for being on the
Oh my
show.
gosh. Well, you know how I feel for you. I mean, and first of all, I love you. Second of all, when you cook, it makes me so happy. I know that when you post, I'm like, this just made me so happy because you're so good at it. And it's not even like it wasn't, I mean, I don't think it was your main thing, but it just is your thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's therapy for me. It's therapy. People don't realize I'm an introvert, so I love cooking for myself, and I don't eat a lot of that stuff. I eat it, and then I want people to try it.
I
Um, it's
I
just it's
think
more
I wish I
therapy.
lived closer to you, but I feel like the only reason you work out is so that you can eat all that food that you make.
It's to eat. That's it. It's the only reason I work out. I don't work out because I'm a fitness guy. I work out because I have to eat, and I love to eat good. My last meal on this earth should not be a kale salad or cauliflower rice.
No, I know. I went all in with like just heavy, like warm comfort food. But I'll be honest with you. I feel like you obviously are a master of so many things. I want everybody on this to know that it doesn't only look good, it tastes good. I wish I could smell it when you were cooking. I mean, yeah, it looks good when you're cooking it, but I know it's good.
No, I thank you. And I can't wait to cook for you, and I can't wait to collab, and I can't wait to see you 2021 when
I know.
this country reopens. Because let me tell you, it's recalibrated me to even be closer to the circle that I think is going to make an impact in the near future, which is tomorrow's never promised. And so you're one of those people. So thank you for being here, and I can't wait to see you.
Thank you. I can't wait to see you. Ming, take care. Keep cooking, please.
I will.
Take care. Bye. Great song.